Hello, and welcome to this video module on SEC filings, the 14A, or proxy statement. We're going to take a look at how best to extract information from a 14A. As we've done in the other modules, we're going to start by going to the SEC's company search website, and we're going to focus on Vera Bradley, a company that went public in 2010. The 14A is basically a message to shareholders. It invites them to a shareholders meeting, and it lays out a whole bunch of information about share ownership, about the executives and directors, some of whom would be up for election to the board of directors at that particular shareholder meeting. It also has information about equity incentive plans, which can be useful in M&A transactions as they can affect shares outstanding. Let's flip over to the SEC page. As we've done before, we're just going to enter the ticker for our target company. And we're going to look for the 14A. You'll see that they're often listed as a def or definitive, basically the final version of the 14A. So we're going to click on that document, and we see it's from May. It's the most recent one available. And we're going to click on the proxy statement. Like we've seen before, we've got SEC at the top, tells us which form it is, 14A, company name. And just scrolling down, we see a letter from the company saying you're invited to attend the 2011 annual meeting of shareholders. It tells you where it is, when it is, and then tells you that there's a whole bunch of information that they're going to be asking for you, or that you can vote on. So the purpose of this meeting, this particular one, is going to be to elect 2 directors to the board of directors, to ratify the appointment of PricewaterhouseCoopers as the auditor, and to hold various other votes and transact any other business that may come up. And you'll see that the case will be laid out as to why you should vote in approval of these, and the company will make a recommendation to you that we'll see in a second. So like we've seen with some of our other documents, we've got a hyperlinked table of contents. And we're just going to flip down who's entitled to vote, how do I vote, do I need to attend the meeting, just a whole bunch of things. If you were actually a shareholder, this would be quite useful to you. As an investment banker, you're probably just reading this as an outsider and trying to extract information from it. So we've got some info about actual directors, but we do see that the company right here in boxed and bold, that the company is recommending that you vote for the directors, shocker, that they've recommended. If we go down to pages 8 and 9, we can see they just lay out a whole bunch of things about committees. Companies have to have committees, especially public companies. There's an audit committee, a compensation committee. Basically, you don't want the CEO being a director and picking his or her own salary. So there's a compensation committee that would probably exclude that particular executive. We're next going to go down and see the other topic I just wanted to point out one note about this. They're asking people to vote, and they recommend voting for the appointment of PricewaterhouseCoopers as independent auditor. Well, as we alluded to in some earlier modules in this CIBA course, there are a lot of costs with being a public company. Let's just look right here. You can see fiscal 2010, before the company was public, their audit fees about $400,000, and in the year that they went public, 2011, audit fees of $2 million. So some of those are probably a bit inflated just around the IPO, a lot of legwork for the auditors just to get the company ready for that. But you can see that there's a big jump in going in terms of fees and expenses to a company in terms of going public. Next thing I wanted to look at has to do with the equity incentive plan. So I'm going to scroll down and show you the equity compensation awards. It tells us that there were some pre-IPO equity grants, and I know from reading this that those were all exercised, so they won't affect us too much. But if we keep looking down, scroll down to page 25 in this particular document, outstanding equity awards at fiscal year end, very small number of awards, really wouldn't affect many of our calculations. Option exercises, shares acquired on vesting. So these are all in the past, so these wouldn't affect any of our calculations. Basically, when we're going through a proxy, we want to look for unexercised options. We want to look at the strike price of those. This company actually doesn't happen to have any options. They've gone with the stock awards, restricted stock, where they actually issue shares, so there's no strike price. But it is important, as I mentioned in our previous, I believe in the 10Q module that we did, this company told us that they issued 106,000 shares that are going to vest yearly over 3 years. So we would just want to read about the plan. They give a bit more detail, but they do say that in connection with their offering, they set up a plan, an equity incentive plan, to, as they say, optimize profitability and incentivize certain participants, basically employees, and give those an incentive for excellence in individual performance, promote teamwork. But we do see that the company has 6 million shares in aggregate reserved for issuance. So those haven't yet been issued, so we don't need to yet take those into account. But for example, if this was the target in an M&A transaction, we'd want to make sure that we look through the proxy statement to see what options were outstanding, because certainly if we were advising the acquirer, we'd need to let them know what the total purchase price would be, all in, taken into account dilutive effect of various securities. Last item I want to point out in the proxy statement is the share ownership by certain owners and management. This could be useful, again, in an M&A situation. If, for example, you're trying to get a company to approve an offer that's put out, well, you might just see how concentrated certain shares are. So, for example, in this case, we've got one of the founders with about 22%, another founder with 18%. I read through the footnotes. These two numbers having the exact same number of shares. It's actually family, so they're each given credit for it, but it's really just that would be double counting if you added that twice. But basically, between two families, you've got about 40% of the ownership. That and one looks like probably some sort of outside financial, some sort of firm that has these shares. Between those three, you might be able to get a majority vote on a deal. So that's why it might be useful to look at share ownership. That's the core of what we look at in a 14A or proxy statement.